Hi, Facebook friends. Helen Archontou here, CEO of the YWCA of Northern New Jersey. So happy to have some time with you today. TGIF, Friday, woo, sunny Friday, even better. And what better way to start the weekend than thinking about lots of great fun things to do with your family? And I was inspired recently because I got a chance to see this wonderful book that the county put out, thanks to our guest today. And with these wonderful activities for families to do. And we know during this time that we have been living in this pandemic and kind of in lockdown. And when the weather got a little better, we were able to get out a little bit more as long as we were doing it safely and with social distancing and with masks. And what a gift that our county helped put together this wonderful resource for us, and I didn't know if people knew about it, so I wanted to make sure we used YWTV as an opportunity to share it with all of you. And it also was just a great excuse to talk to a wonderful lady, a wonderful leader in our community. We're so grateful to have her to be a friend of the YW, and I'm personally grateful to have her to be a friend of mine, our freeholder, Tracy Silna. And welcome, Tracy.
Helen, thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, as we said before we went live, I missed you, so this is just a great excuse to chat.
Absolutely.
And for those people who don't get the chance to talk to you all the time, one of the best things about talking to you is there's always so much going on that's always interesting to talk about. So we've got a lot to get into today for everybody.
Let's dive in.
So before we do that, let me tell everyone about you. This wonderful woman here, this wonderful leader, has served 8 years as a Bergen County freeholder. She's a lifelong resident of Bergen County, and she holds a BA from the University of Texas at Austin, a law degree from Fordham University, and a master's in public administration from Rutgers University. She's very lazy. Can you tell? Very, very lazy. During her time as a county legislator, she's championed the formation of the LGBTQ Advisory Committee and launched the Bergen County's annual LGBTQ plus Youth Leadership Summit. She's also led the charge to implement and expand Project Search and is now the driving force between the Food Security Task Force, which we're going to get to talk about a little bit today also. And that is, well, I'll let her tell us what that is. All of that and so much more. She has her own private nonprofit, We the People, that YWCA of Northern New Jersey honored as one of our Racial Justice Award winners because of her work there, which we'll get into also. And, she's just an all-around great person to have in our community. So welcome, Tracy.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you for having me today. It's such a great opportunity to talk to you and talk to your audience and really get out there some of the things that are going on in Bergen County. I think that so often people don't know what resources are at their fingertips. And I think that's, really an important purpose all of us have is getting the word out of what's here in our own backyards.
It's so true. And, as a mom of 7-year-old twins, who, it's hard, being home with them like this and not, having them be part of other regular activities. You want to keep them engaged. You want them to have fresh air. You want them to have activities. But, you're also tired because you're working full time, and the research it might take to come up with those activities, may get lost somewhere in the mix. So how wonderful that you all put together this tremendous resource. And by the way, folks, we're going to put the link to this resource in the comments so anybody watching can access it. So tell us, Tracy, how did this come about?
It came out by having conversations just like this.
Yeah.
So many of my friends, so many of their frustrations finding things to do with their children, wanting their kids to unplug, having spent so much year virtual, wanting to make sure that their kids were getting out and enjoying other opportunities with so many camps open, with so few childcare options. It really, people were at their wits' ends, not knowing kind of what else can they do with their kid. It's how can they keep them engaged and their minds expanding and their them active and feeling like summer is summer. I think that's so much of a frustration, is that so much of what our kids have come to rely upon has changed. And so how do we still make summer fun while dealing with the constraints of the pandemic?
And I love even having this conversation now because we know that school, virtual or hybrid or whatever it is starting. And these last few weeks of summer, up until Labor Day, are really when a lot of memories get made. So this is the perfect time,
Absolutely.
to look at this list and get engaged.
And also, so many of these things will go on in the fall. I think with so many of us having these abbreviated school in-person settings, our days, curriculars are may not fitting in the same way. We're going to still have these same challenges going into the fall. And while some of them will change, and there may be other opportunities that come available as fall comes with apple picking and other things that are available in our community, this is a good baseline list that people can work from and engage with their kids in this way, exploring different corners of our county that they may or may not have seen before.
So talk to me a little bit. I know as parents, one of the big concerns on our mind is safety. So before we get into some of your favorite places on this list, which is probably hard to pick because I know you love every aspect of the county. But before we get into that, I mean, a lot of us, like myself, I mean, we're worried about safety. How does that factor into the activities that you chose for this book?
And that's exactly was one of the main driving factors, was things that I knew were going to be able to be operated at social distance, outdoors where viral loads are less, were really the driving factor. It was researching and finding and exploring some of the new innovative things that have popped up, like drive-in movies throughout the county that were not there before, and seeing, but really understanding all the different tools that were available, all the different experiences that we have that were able to be socially distanced. To see what the Audubon Society is doing by still doing their walks, the bird finding walks in the Meadowlands, and still having their butterfly garden. The river keeper still doing his boat tours that are safe and outdoors and allowing appropriate social distancing and mask wearing. So all of those things were a critical concern for us, and to make sure, as you can see, there are not many group activities on that list, but the ones that are there, we have made sure that are done in a safe way.
Well, that's great to know. And tell us again, Tracy, and I said we're going to put it here, but where can people find this list?
So it is on my website, tracyzurg.com. It's also on my Facebook page, and I think it's also on our Freeholder overall website as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Well, we're going to link it here so people can see it. And I know I saw it, on your Facebook page since we're friends, and I was just so excited, as I said, as a mom, and it just, gave me this, thought to bring you on. So tell me, what are your favorites on that list? What are the must-dos?
So my kids have been very into hiking this summer, and that's been something that we've explored. Some new hiking trails that we didn't know existed. Sorry for the wind that's getting in my.
I know. I'm
some of the hiking trails that we've explored. Right by me in Franklin Lakes, the Franklin Lakes Reserve has been a nice, easy trail, flat. There's also canoeing and kayaking there that you can rent during the week. That's been a wonderful, wonderful thing to be able to get out onto the water. The canoeing and kayaking also at Overpeck Park is a tremendous thing as well. Obviously, ice cream is a critical component of all summer, and I will tell you that we have absolutely taste tested all of the ones that were on the list on our ice cream tour day that we did. I have done the boat tour before. I've gone to the butterfly garden. I think there's so many, as I said, it's getting out of your backyard. I think so many of us get locked into our own little community, and it's understanding that there's a greater breadth of things that we can explore, and those have been our favorites this summer.
Well, those are some great ones, and I've done some of them, so I can say for sure, but there's some that I haven't, so I'm definitely going to drop them in. And I love that you can do them all the way through fall also. People don't have to feel like this is just a summer activity.
One of the things that my interns worked on last summer that's on the list is the history tour. It's to understand the history that's in our backyard. And while some of the sites themselves are not open to go into in the same way, you can still kind of understand and see, how George Washington kind of footprints are all over our county, and really the historic past that we have here within our own community. And there's games and activities that my interns last summer put together to make it more meaningful and resonate even more fully for our kids. So I wanted to give that one a little special plug because that was a lot of hard work on their part.
Well, there's no doubt. I know you always have a great team working with you, and they're always vying to get to you. So, so that's shout out to the interns. What would any of us do without them?
Absolutely.
our organization included. So that's great. So everyone, the COVID safe, kid friendly activities that Tracy Zurn and her team put together We have the link right here in the comments for you to access. And it's also available on her website, which tell us your website, Tracy.
TracyZer.com.
TracyZer.com. We'll put that in here. And it's also available on the county's website. So folks, make some time, get some last moments in with the family, all together before everyone gets back into a regular schedule. But let's talk about a few other things. You brought up history, and which made me think of some.
You disappeared from the screen, but I know what you're going to ask me. You're going to ask me about the historic change that we've made in the title. That as soon as the governor signs the bill that was passed by the Assembly and Senate, we will no longer be called freeholders. Freeholder was a historic title that was in 1690, when the county was formed. Only people who held their land freely could hold who could be in government roles throughout the county. And this really has been not only has it been a title that's been confusing because no one knows what the heck a freeholder is, but it's been there were huge classes of citizens that were excluded from that. I mean, people who were of African American descent, women could not hold land freely at that time, and so this was really an antiquated title. We were the only ones in the entire country. When I go to National Coalition of Counties, we were the only ones called freeholders. They had no idea. It is almost nationwide called commissioners in other entities. And so, yeah, it is definitely
historic.
It is historic. And, as I said earlier, to you before we got on camera, I always took this little bit of joy in the fact that I would not have been able to not only not vote for, but I certainly could not have held this office when this form of government was formed. So that was like a little bit of pride, kind of like, look how far we've come kind of thing. But I understand for many, the racial insensitivity that was there, that this title connoted was problematic. And it was an opportunity. I'm so glad that the governor took leadership and made this change at this point in time.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see it as well, obviously, with our work being so rooted in racial justice. And
it's going to be confusing for a while, and I'm sure I'm going to mess up calling myself
I'm sure everyone will be like freeholder commissioner, for a while, but it's important, and it's not little. We've been doing a Share the Mic Now campaign every Thursday. We share the mic with Black women in our community on our social media and on YWTV to amplify their voices. And yesterday we spoke to a young woman who was 16, and she was sharing her story about representation and terminologies and how impactful it was for her. So it's not a little thing. Maybe as white people with our privilege, we may not think it's a big deal, but the reality of it is it really is. So It's not a small move that this change was made. And yes, kudos to our governor for recognizing that and finally making an important change that was long overdue.
And as I said on the record at our last freeholder meeting, which will probably be our last meeting as freeholders, to my colleagues, is that we now get to set the bar of what a commissioner should be. We now get to set the tone of how we continue to get the word out about what county government is doing, and how we will be that first class of commissioners. And so we really have a responsibility to set that bar high.
Well, soon to be Commissioner Tracy Zer, we thank you for sharing that history with us, because I wasn't sure if everyone knew that the history behind it. And really it's wonderful that we're seeing this change. So let's talk about other things. Tell us about what's happening with We the People. I know that I've followed the great work that you do, and I can see that you've been out in the community helping during this time.
Well, and part of the role of, We the People has always been an organization where part of what we've been doing is getting young people to roll up their sleeves, work together along racial, cultural, religious lines, and not along them, mixing everyone up, making sure that they're working together and getting to know each other as people. And as we now move to a virtual world where, we had 1,000 kids working together on Martin Luther King Day last year. We were gearing up to do a big deal on September 11th with parochial schools, which now aren't even going to be in person. Mm-hmm. And so it's how do we now move and change and shift our dialogue to make virtual conversation among our kids safe, and we're going to be working on putting together a we'll get you the announcement as soon as it's formalized in September for a conversation among our teens, where so many of the protests were wonderful opportunities for our kids to really lead the way and have their voices heard. There was a lot of talking at each other, not a lot of talking with each other, and so part of where we're going to be moving is engaging in those kinds of conversations in a meaningful way going forward.
Well, when we get to that point, we'd love to have you back, to talk about it in more detail for sure. And just for anyone watching, please check out the work of We the People. We'll put the link for that site here as well.
We've had a wonderful craft camp that some Girl Scouts have been working on this summer, where they've been doing different crafts each week and trying to, things that can be used for service, things that can be donated, things that can cheer up your neighbors and put, engage our kids in a virtual way in service together too. So definitely check that out.
You guys do such great work throughout the year, and I do encourage everybody to check out We the People and the different activities. My children actually volunteered as part of the Martin Luther King Day event, and even though they were young, it impacted them, and I never think you're too young to start volunteering.
I agree.
And there's something, and I know teens that were part of your event over at Bergen Community College, which I think you had, over 600,
we had 750 of them this year. So.
I remember it was a large number, and I know that it was totally, the teens walked away with just, feeling, totally rewired, in their thinking from it. So thank you.
And now we have to figure out how to bring community together when we're forced to be separate. And I think that's a real challenge, and that's something that I look forward to discussing further with you, and collaborating, because I think that's, so many of our kids are feeling disconnected and from each other and from community in general. Like, what is community about? And that's really where we have to delve.
Right, for sure. Well, we stand with you and are here to have those discussions with you. I know we've been working to figure it out ourselves, here at the YW. So what are, obviously, in the midst of this, pandemic time, we also had all these, horrible tragedies that happened with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor. I mean, that they've just one after the other has really hit the press. And, obviously between your work as a freeholder and your work at We the People, how are you and your organization trying to stay as, an ally and supportive of our Black community during this time?
Helen, that's actually a great question, because I think part of my initial response also was doing a lot of listening, and realizing that allyship is interesting. It's challenging, and also knowing what we don't know is important too, and listening and understanding the implications of implicit bias, understanding the ramifications of that, I think are really important, and understanding that I, as a leader in our community, have a role, and it's something that I've been mindful of in the way that I have gone forward in reaching out to different communities and encouraging and incorporating them into my internship programs, giving them the opportunities and access to the machinations of county government, but to understand that there's just so much more work that needs to be done. And hearing the voices, I think, is something right now that is super important, and giving, I think, for what our organization is going to be involved in, is giving our young people a safe place, a safe space to have those conversations. And some of those, talking about difference is hard. Our moms are always said, you don't judge a book by its cover. You don't talk about difference. Don't focus on that difference. Mm-hmm. We're all the same. But sometimes we have to have those hard conversations about difference and what it means. And that's kind of the space that we're in right now, is the need to have those conversations.
For sure. Well, grateful that we have leaders like you in office in our communities that are, that get that and are listening, and not just, doing what they think, because we know that that's key for us to be able to help, get to the end goal of our mission, which is to eliminate racism.
Yeah.
So,
and to that end, I've been really, that kind of segues perfectly into the bulk of what I've been working on right now,
which is
food security, because so much of what's involved in food security gets to the core of the social determinants of health is that, when people don't have food, what came very palpably clear throughout this pandemic is kind of the lack of coordination among our food pantry system. And I put it in quotes because there was no coordination. There was no conversations between different food pantries, no collaboration. And so what we have done in the county is we just formed this food security task force, the whole point of which is to get people working together to understand that there's a role play as far as collaboration. And we've seen, even since our launch, we've seen some little mini wins of things like somebody got extra milk and was able to get it to a different pantry. Understanding that we're seeing unprecedented needs. We just got back a survey that we had put out in the field, assessing our infrastructure, seeing what the needs on the ground. Almost universally, we're seeing at least a 50% increase in our needs for food and food access in our county. And the access issues affect our seniors and others as well. But we've seen the need, and we are coming to understand that this is, many people don't realize that this is a problem that our neighbors are having.
Yeah.
There's always been, since I've been on the board of social services, somebody in every single town, Franklin Lakes, Alpine, it doesn't matter, who's receiving SNAP benefits, which is food stamps. There are so many of our neighbors who are only one paycheck, as we saw in this pandemic when so many did not have that paycheck, that they're one paycheck away from real struggle. And it has been so palpably clear as we've seen 100 the Triborough Food Pantry was servicing 30 families prior to the pandemic, is now doing over 100. Palisades Park was doing 300 meals a night for people. Tenafly, 125 meals a night. Fairview, they were seeing a certain amount of people a month, and now are seeing that many people in a week. It is really incredible, the need, and that's going to force us to look at things like bulk purchasing and looking at things like using our collaborative buying power. It's going to encourage us. I mean, our first thing that we found is so many of these food pantries didn't even have computers, and so we have gone through the computers that are being cycled out in the county. We're in the next 2 weeks, we'll be rolling out so that every food pantry is at least connected and able to collect data and share it and being able to paint the picture of what is going on the ground. And you do so digitally and being able to speed up their data, not only their data collection, but their food collection and outreach to their community by having the digital capacity to do so. So that's like the first bar that we had to overcome. And now it's, we get calls all the time of, a pantry in Teaneck was serving 5 families and now doing 250 a week, and they're at the verge of running out of food. And it's how do we get them the resources? How do we kind of come up with a logistics system to move food through our county in a more efficient, effective, and impactful way, and also in a humane way. The average person was going to 4 to 5 food pantries in the course of a week just to get enough food for their family. Not only is that not sustainable in a pandemic, that's not humane in a normal time either. And so how do we get them enough nutritionally balanced food that doesn't create the next generation of diabetics? How do we make sure that we're giving them the nutritional bandwidth to go on and meet their potentials in lives? And so that, we're looking at the emergent need, but we're also looking at the long-term infrastructure of really attacking it is in our community health assessments for the last 3 years that minority communities are dealing with higher levels of diabetes. And so it's coming up that this is something that we have to attack. And, the county is now doing so in a really comprehensive way, bringing all stakeholders to the table.
Well, it's definitely another area where systemic racism, is embedded, and, gratefully having a task force like yours together can really look at those issues like you are, and try to, dissipate them for sure. And I have to say, I'm hoping that some of the areas that have gotten so much focus and spotlight during this time, obviously we knew these were issues before, but
right.
Hopefully now everyone knows that they're issues, and we'll
right.
be able to be more impactful going forward in really eradicating them.
Yeah, and I think that our community-based organizations have a real important role to play. And we have seen some real interesting innovation from some of the pop-up efforts on the food security side. But I think one of the other pieces that need to be underscored is to understanding that you don't know what's going on for your neighbor. You don't know what the struggles that they're dealing with. And in a place like Bergen County, where it is so expensive to live, the rent allocation or the mortgage allocation, you just don't know what we had over 10% unemployment in Bergen County at the height of the pandemic. And the scars from that are not going to dissipate so quickly. And so the need is going to still be there long after people's attention spans are kind of on to the next challenge. And this is one that is going to enable us to kind of need us all to pull together to really look how we're providing for those who are struggling in our backyard.
Well, I'm grateful that you're together. If people want more information about the task force, is there some place that we should send them?
Yes, the task force has a Facebook page, and it will soon have a website, but they can definitely go onto my Facebook page and check out what's going on. But the Facebook page has it's the Food Security Task Force. It's on Facebook, and it has, first of all, an interactive map so that if you need food, you can enter in your zip code and it will connect you to a food pantry and give you the information of when their hours are so that you know if you wish to donate to any of those pantries. It will soon be enabled to do that as well, but you can certainly message us and let us know if you have resources that you wish to donate. And we are eager to involve everyone in solving this problem. Just like we eradicated homelessness in Bergen County and tackle that, now it's the time to tackle hunger and understand that this is really one of the key issues. And by the way, the other piece of this task force is not just dealing with the hunger, not just sticking food in the trunk, but connecting them to the services and the resources they need to put their lives back together, getting them the job resource center, getting them mental health support, getting them affordable childcare, whatever it is that they may need, is making sure the people are given the tools to emerge from food insecurity.
Well, that's wonderful, because we know that it takes a village, right, to pull people, to a different place. So we all need to be working together, and it's wonderful that we now have this resource to, create that safety net and link all the agencies to provide that support. So as we're closing out, Tracy, I thought I'd ask mom to mom. I know that a lot of us are struggling with the back to school that's coming, but I know you also, so there's that, but I know you also had to do a drop off to college for the first time.
Yeah, I just launched my daughter. She's going to be in North Carolina at Wake Forest, which is why I am quarantined now, because that's one of the hotspot states. So I'm now home for 2 weeks.
Yes.
But more importantly for her, listen, it's emotional at any point to launch your child off to college, but to do so with the backdrop of the pandemic, where you're worried about their safety in a whole different way, it's tough stuff. It really is. It's been a roller coaster of emotion. And for my daughter, who did not get a prom, who had such uncertainty regarding graduation and really lost that spring, my heart goes out to all those current seniors whose class is going to be marked by this pandemic in a whole different way, and what this year is going to look like, and what the college application process and finding your way in this economy for all those college kids who've graduated. It is definitely an uncertain time. I have my youngest is starting high school. We don't really know what that's going to look like either. One of my mantras during this, there's so many people who were posting their gorgeous pictures of sourdough bread, and I'm not poo-pooing sourdough bread. It's critical. Talking about the new things they took up during the pandemic. All we have to do is arrive, right? Like it's not, you don't get like extra bonus points for any of this stuff. It's just making sure we're all taking care of our mental health, all taking care of each other, supporting our kids to the best way that we can, and
yes,
and getting through.
It's so true. It's so true. It's wonderful if you can have all those extras, like a clean closet and an empty garage, and you learned how to speak Chinese, and
or crocheting or whatever.
Right, and you're taking on crocheting and knitting, whatever it is,
Right. And if that helps your sanity, I applaud that.
Right. It's all good. It's all good. But the reality of it is, you're 100% right. It's really just about our mental health and getting through each day in a way that hopefully, you can, stay whole, stay healthy, and go on, for sure. And
instill in our kids that resilience.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything that this hopefully teaches is that, sometimes things aren't perfect. Sometimes things aren't the way that we want them to be. And I don't know what the new normal is going to look like. And that's okay. We'll get there, and we'll be there for each other in the process.
Yes. Well, look, I am so grateful. As I shared when we started, I missed you. So it was so nice to catch up with you. And it's always great. There's always so many things to talk about. You're always so active and involved in so many, great initiatives in our community. See, excuse me, here's my
perfect timing for them to
and they're the kids, right?
right, underscoring why we're doing it all, right?
Yes,
it's to make our community stronger and better for them.
This is the juggling act. Mommy, my brother's not listening to me. But it's definitely a challenging time, but so grateful that we have people like you in office and working with all of our wonderful team of freeholders, soon to be commissioners.
And so grateful for all of you at the Y who are really doing this every single day to kind of build stronger community and make it a more compassionate place. So thank you, Helen, for all that you're doing.
You're welcome. And the thanks really goes to our amazing team. It's not we, like many organizations, had to downsize, during this time, to be able to keep going. But the work has, increased significantly.
The work's exponential.
Yes, it absolutely has. And I'm very grateful to the team that has still with us and that's pumping everything out for the community. And I'm looking forward to things getting back to normal to bring the rest back with us. So, but until that, everyone, it's Friday. You've got a lot of great activities right here you can go to and keep your weekend safe and fun. Thanks.
And since Tracy. We put that out, Darlington is also open for swimming, and feel free to check that out too.
Oh, that's a great thing. And it's supposed to be a nice weekend, and it's beautiful there. Lots of great fun at Darlington County Park. So look, folks, you have a great weekend. We're so grateful you spent some time with us this week on YWTV. We will have lots of great episodes coming up for you. And we do encourage everyone to sign up for our 21-day race and social justice challenge, as we've been sharing. It's just an easy link that you just put your email in, and starting September 9th, you'll for 21 business days be receiving an email with either a podcast or a documentary, an article, a book suggestion, something to read to help broaden your knowledge on racial justice and social justice issues and allyship. We're all in this together, and we're looking to make a better world. And this is a wonderful introspective process to be able to be part of it. So we'll put the link here for you to sign up for the 21-day racial justice challenge. Also, we encourage any young women, 10th graders in our community that are interested in joining us for Empower You, Empower University. Girls Leadership Academy is kicking off in September. It is virtual. It's for any girls in our 5 counties that we service, which is Morris, Essex, Passaic, Bergen, and Hudson. I had to say them all slowly so I don't forget anybody. But we welcome all 10th graders to be part of this opportunity to meet mentors in the community, like soon-to-be Commissioner Tracy Zer, come and speak to our young women and talk to them about potential future opportunities, as well as some evidence-based learnings along the way. So join us for that. And look, have a great weekend. Be safe, be well, vote, do your census. What else, Tracy?
Do your census. No, the census is key. The census is really critical, especially because they cut it off by a month. You have to get it in now. Thank you.
Yes, we're almost out of the window, so please take care of that. We'll put all the links for all those things here for you too. Be well, everyone. Tracy, great to see you.
Great to see
you.
And
take care, everyone.
Bye.
We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.